Welcome back to Watch the Bookerman and to episode number 56 of Paul Heyman's TNA 2010. We come into this show off the back of a significant episode last week, not just because of Tyler Black's victory over Jeff Hardy in the main event, but what happened after the show with Jeff Hardy being sent to rehab. He's out for the next 6 months, and I think we're building a really strong heel group. They've taken Sting out with a concussion. Jeff Hardy is now also on the long-term injured list. We're in the Impact Zone as always, as we get into the next episode of Impact with just a couple of weeks left until final resolution. And we begin with a look back at that main event that I just mentioned. Where else could you begin than Tyler Black defeating Jeff Hardy in a steel chain match after hitting him with a blackout, aka the curb stomp. Following the match, AJ Styles came out. He'd not been seen in 11 days and he had the intention of confronting Tyler Black, but he was taken down by the Kings of Wrestling. While Claudio Castagnoli and Chris Hero held AJ Styles in position, Tyler Black put a steel chair around the neck of Jeff Hardy, heading to the second rope. He jumped off and crushed the neck of the charismatic Enigma, a version of the Pillmanizer. Mauro and Taz then welcome viewers to the show, confirming that Jeff Hardy has joined Sting on the long-term injured list. Sorry about repeating myself there, and expressing concern that AJ Styles is now the man who stands alone, the final member of that TNA Dream Team. On a completely different note, Mr. Anderson will go one-on-one with Jeff Jarrett in tonight's main event, a no disqualifications rematch from Turning Point. But before anything else, AJ Styles has requested time to address what happened last week, and he's been given that time as he makes his way to the 6 sides. The first thing I know is not that great of a segment. AJ speaks about what happened last week and the feeling of powerlessness he felt as he watched Jeff Hardy being taken out by the New Age. Throughout everything on tonight's show, what we want to put over beyond anything else is how brutal this group have been. They set out to make a change, and with Sting and Jeff Hardy now completely out of the picture for a long time, they've certainly done that. With them out, AJ Styles stands alone. He might not be able to control what goes around him and what other people do, but he can ensure that he remains firm in his resistance against the New Age. Last week, Jeff made it clear that he wanted to fight alone, and some might think that in the process, AJ Styles failed to protect his partner. Sometimes Jeff Hardy doesn't know what's best for himself, and AJ should have stepped in long before it got to the point that it did. But he was just respecting Jeff's wishes. AJ Styles vows that whatever anybody thinks about what's gone down in the last couple of months, he can promise that he will not fail to protect TNA. That is what matters to him above all else. The New Age then come out from the back and appear intent on completing the set. AJ Styles, the last man remaining for now. Once Claudio Castagnoli, Chris Hero and Tyler Black are in the ring, however, Roderick Strong runs down, wielding a steel chair. Tyler Black quickly rolls out of the ring before he can even make contact with him, and when Hero and Castagnoli find themselves face to face with AJ Styles, Roderick Strong and a chair, they decide they too will retreat. Not wanting to get into it with somebody who's got a weapon is fair enough, and simply they're living to fight another day. Jimmy Jacobs directing things as he normally does, and while it's not that great of a rated segment, I do think that it brings Roderick Strong onto another level, and with everything else he's got going on at the minute, he's somebody who I'm very keen to see rise up the ranks. An extremely short match sees Desmond Wolfe make his return to the ring, the first match since the injury he sustained against Bryan Danielson at Bound for Glory, and he defeats Shark Boy in 4 minutes 10, hitting a jawbreaker lariat followed by a Tower of London. It's one of those matches where it could have been over in 2 minutes, but Desmond Wolfe clearly wanted to send a message and brutalise Shark Boy before deciding to end it when Shark Boy was completely out. Desmond Wolfe with a decent in-ring performance, and that stands us in good stead for what is coming with him. Desmond Wolfe then stands tall after the match with Bryan Danielson coming down to the ring. Wolfe is expecting an attempt at revenge for the attack last week during Bryan's match with Kazarian, but Danielson instead takes a microphone. He tells Desmond Wolfe that he's not going to beat the crap out of him tonight, and given that every single part of his body is desperate for him to slap the hell out of Wolfe, he's saying that he's restraining himself and he's doing it for one reason. He could give Wolfe that beating now, get it out of the way, and he's sure he'd feel great. Or he could wait. By final resolution, Bryan Danielson will have waited 2 months to get his hands on Desmond Wolfe, and when he does, whether the match lasts 1 minute or 1 hour. He is going to make every second count. He officially accepts Desmond Wolfe's challenge for the pay-per-view and tells him that he can't wait to target, break down and brutalise Wolfe's left arm all over again. Gaining heat to the storyline, and considering that was rated on Bryan Danielson's entertainment and I think Wolfe's overness, that's a really strong rating. Very happy with that. Good job from both of these two guys, and I'm definitely looking forward to that pay-per-view match. Jeremy Borash then interviews Mr. Anderson about a match that is coming tonight. He's fighting Jeff Jarrett, and he plays down the threat of his opponent initially. Mr. Anderson says that it isn't about whether he can beat Jeff Jarrett or not tonight, because he already proved that he could at Turning Point. Tonight is about what Jeff symbolises, the founder of this company, the living, breathing embodiment of TNA Wrestling, and that gives Anderson the chance to prove his point. In the main event of Impact, he is going to disfigure the face of the founder and prove that he stands over anybody in TNA. When he's done that, he's coming for the World Heavyweight Championship, so Kurt Angle better have his eye on that main event. A decent segment again. We know those 2-minute segments rate by now, so no surprises as the Hooligans pick up a victory over Brutus Magnus and Big Rob Terry. A showcase again of Paul London and Brian Kendrick, who I do think are getting up there in the ratings. A 69 and a 68 is really good. They've almost gone under the radar with not having a major storyline for quite a few months now, but they're just quietly getting on with putting in really good performances. London and Kendrick were two of my favourite in-ring wrestlers. I loved Brian Kendrick's run in TNA, and I was a huge fan of the pair of them in WWE. Having been on commentary during the match, I forgot to mention that, but Douglas Williams gets up from his seat after the match. He's not impressed really, and we can tell that by his words on commentary by Magnus and Rob Terry. He tells Mauro and Taz that he has a lot to think about before taking his headset off and heading to the back, continuing the dissension or the dilemma that Douglas Williams currently finds himself in. In the back, Maria Kanellis speaks to her boyfriend Jay Lethal, sighing as she tells him she really wants to fight Madison Rayne tonight. Lethal says that this is his issue with Matt Morgan and he doesn't want her to get involved. The match can't happen. He's not going to see her get hurt because of something that he started. Maria insists that she is capable of fighting her own corner. She is a wrestler after all, and while Lethal's issue may be with Morgan, her issue is with Madison. Showing a different side to herself, Maria asserts and tells him that she is her own woman and she is going to face Madison Rayne tonight. Jay Lethal isn't happy with this, clearly, but there's little he can do if she is determined. The Beautiful People show is then introduced by Angelina Love and Velvet Sky, episode number 3, with Mickie James and Tara. Under the guise of asking questions about their team, Love and Sky continually throw insults at Mickie James and Tara. It seems to be a theme of them that they try to divide and conquer whoever they end up talking with. Maria and Jay Lethal, they tried to come between. ODB, Brooke and Lacey, they tried to come between, and now they're doing it with the Knockouts Tag Team Champions. Tara eventually warns them about what they have to say. They need to watch they don't overstep the mark, especially considering what happened 2 weeks ago. They're lucky that Tara hasn't taken them down already. They sprayed hairspray in her eye to give Angelina Love a victory over Tara. Mickie James adds that if they want to fight them, all they have to do is ask. The Beautiful People look at each other, shrug and ask the question, can we have a Knockouts Tag Team title shot? It's pretty simple, and Mickie James equally accepts the challenge, no questions asked. Tara saying that they will see them at Final Resolution, not giving Angelina Love and Velvet Sky the drama they were fishing for. Mickie James and Tara leave up the ramp, more than happy to defend their titles at the upcoming pay-per-view. There's no reason why they wouldn't want to fight them. The Beautiful People have had some decent victories recently, and while they wanted to stir the pot clearly, Mickie James and Tara are just all business at the moment. They're about elevating this Knockouts Tag Team division, and with everybody doing really well improvising, it's a 63 rated segment, getting the crowd hotter as well. Before the third match of the night, a recap is shown from last week. Another convincing victory for Sara Del Rey was followed by her cutting a promo running down the former Knockouts champion Awesome Kong, who she claimed was gone for good and who wasn't in the building. While Awesome Kong wasn't able to defend herself, her former tag team partner Hamada confronted Sara Del Rey. The Knockouts champion dismissed Hamada out of hand, but tonight Alyssa Flash will go one-on-one with the former Knockouts Tag Team Champion. Awesome Kong, of course, the other half of the second ever Knockouts Tag Team Champions, and it's a decent match. Happy with the 61 rating actually. Considering the issues we've had with Hamada's overness and her being perceived as unimportant in the fans' eyes, it's really good to see her in a very good match and a decent performance. Of course, we know how good Alyssa Flash is by now, but the pretty good chemistry obviously helping as well. Hamada does pick up the victory after hitting a kick to the head of Alyssa Flash that seems to knock her out. So it is that essentially she would have won the match, but Jimmy Jacobs pulls the referee out at the last second. In a way, we might as well have given her the pinfall victory, because in the fans' eyes it is a clean win and she was the decisively better competitor on the night, but it's just because of the post-match segment that I wanted, and I am trying to protect Alyssa Flash a little bit. Her out cold on the canvas, you could argue, doesn't actually do that, but Hamada is far from happy despite the DQ victory and heads to the outside confronting Jimmy Jacobs. However, mischief comes between the two. Jimmy Jacobs, who was thrown around by Awesome Kong a couple of weeks ago, definitely happy to see her come in, but Mischief receives a heel kick for her trouble, so both of the former Knockouts Tag Team Champions Flash and Mischief down, with Hamada then staring through Jimmy Jacobs and towards the Knockouts champion. Sara Del Rey maintains eye contact with Hamada, with the two locked in a stalemate, neither of them making a move, but it's clear that they have eyes for one another. Eventually, Sara Del Rey heads up the ramp, with Jimmy Jacobs left to pick up the pieces of Alyssa Flash and Mischief. Over the last couple of weeks, Hamada has sprung herself into contention for the Knockouts Championship. You could say that it's come out of the blue, but she has the association with Awesome Kong, so in a sense it's also a story of revenge, and it's looking like at the minute she may be the next challenger to Sara Del Rey's title. Opening up the second hour of the show, Mauro and Taz look to send over to the interview area where Jeff Jarrett is about to be spoken to about the main event, but Jarrett actually comes out from the back, followed by Jeremy Borash, and he's taken this off the interview set. He wants to come out to the stage because he wants to get a feel for the energy of the crowd before the match. It's always great to come out for your entrance and feel that fan reaction, but he wants to get that early tonight just so he knows what to expect, because he is laser focused on defeating Mr. Anderson. He looks to hype the crowd behind the loyalty to TNA thing and the fact that Mr. Anderson has had some disparaging things to say about the company. He wants the fans to rally behind him, and the idea here is to just try and get the crowd up even more for this match. The fans in the Impact Zone hopefully will be hyped up for the main event. He tells Jeremy Borash that Anderson is right, that tonight isn't just about the two of them, it's about TNA, it's about everybody in the back, but moreover, it's about the fans, the people who love this company. Where Mr. Anderson goes wrong is when he says that Jeff Jarrett's going to be a pushover. He thinks he's going to be easy to beat, but speaking passionately about the company he created, Jeff Jarrett vows he will not go down without a fight, and tonight is his chance to secure his legacy in TNA. He's done great things, he's won titles, but no individual matters more than this company. He's looking to beat Mr. Anderson for TNA. From behind, as the interview looks to be coming to an end, Sean Bashir appears, looking to get a sneak attack in on Jeff Jarrett, obviously sent by Mr. Anderson. Instead, however, he is quickly dealt with. Those signature punches from Jeff Jarrett taking him down, and he's thrown right back down the entrance tunnel that he came from by a fired up Double J. It's not a good rating. It probably hurts the storyline despite Jeff Jarrett improvising well, but I felt like this segment could be used to just build some final fan favourite heat for Jeff Jarrett, and to hopefully make people desperate to see him beat Mr. Anderson. And you can see on screen now what would be an incredible match in 2021, and is a pretty good match actually. It's there to spotlight Claudio Castagnoli, and with showing off Ricochet's athleticism, but he's not signed to the company. It's just a one night deal, certainly at the moment anyway, and especially with a 28, he has got some developing to do, and he'll do that likely on the independent scene and with Evolve over the coming years. If you've not seen it, I think there's actually a highlights video of Claudio Castagnoli v Ricochet from Battle of Los Angeles PWG in 2010, and that's essentially the reason that I brought Ricochet in. I thought this would be the perfect way for Claudio Castagnoli to be put over in singles competition, the first match he's had without Chris Hero. I felt like with Chris Hero getting the spotlight of pinning Sting at Turning Point, and then Tyler Black pinning Jeff Hardy on last week's Impact, it was time to give the spotlight to Claudio Castagnoli. It's not as big of a scalp. I don't see how anybody could watch Claudio Castagnoli beat the hell out of Ricochet and not be impressed, and it is the Swiss death that secures the victory, the pop-up uppercut, and I just think that would be a brutal way to end the match. Ricochet knocked out cold, and the commentators doing everything as much as I have to try and put Claudio Castagnoli over, the New Age feels like the thing that I've tried to push more than anything, but it's because it's kind of what the save was built around, this group coming in. After the match, Claudio Castagnoli is joined by Chris Hero and Tyler Black in the ring. They stand tall, with Paul Heyman coming out from the back as they do so. Paul Heyman says that while that match was ongoing, he'd been speaking with Jimmy Jacobs in the back, and he's got a couple of announcements to make. He wanted to tell the guys in the ring and everybody watching the news at the same time. First, he confirms a match for next week on Impact, with the Kings of Wrestling facing AJ Styles and Roderick Strong, a follow-up to that opening segment, part of a huge week for Roderick Strong. Again, like I've said, we want to put him over, and this next 7 days is going to be massive for him, because he will then compete in the World X Cup on Saturday, where he desperately needs his team to stay in that competition, with his X Division Championship match against Kazuchika Okada coming the next night at Final Resolution. So he'll actually face Okada 2 times in 24 hours, one for the World X Cup, one for the X Division Championship, and the reason that he gets that title shot is because of the final match of Phase 1. It was the elimination match between the captains in the World X Cup, and Roderick Strong pinned Okada to get his team through, so it only felt fair. If you pin the champion, you're certainly up there in terms of the rankings, and his win-loss record suggests that he deserves that position. Speaking of that pay-per-view, Paul Heyman also confirms that Tyler Black will be in action next Sunday, going one-on-one with AJ Styles. So it's just over a month, I think, or maybe a little bit more, since AJ and Tyler Black. It's almost 2 months since they went to that 20-minute time limit match. I always wanted to do the match on pay-per-view again, and it will be AJ Styles v Tyler Black at Final Resolution. Another really good card coming together. Paul Heyman, the rarest of sights, struggling when improvising, and that means the segment probably could have been better, but it's not too bad, and probably does help the World X Cup storyline, if not the New Age one. Kurt Angle is then interviewed in the back, with the World Heavyweight Champion being asked about tonight's main event. He tells Christy Hem that if he's honest, he doesn't think this match really has anything to do with him. However, after hearing what Mr. Anderson had to say over the last couple of weeks, he's certainly interested in the outcome. Kurt says that he knows how tough the two guys are firsthand. He's fought them both, and there's no love lost between him and either of these guys. He's happy to sit back and watch them beat the hell out of each other tonight, but he might have something to say to the winner after their arm is raised. So whether it's Jeff or Mr. Anderson, Kurt Angle seemingly has something to say to whoever is the winner, and he improvises well in a decent segment. Madison Rayne and Matt Morgan then make their way down to the ring for Madison's match with Maria Kanellis, with a slight delay causing confusion for the two people in the ring. No sign of Maria initially, and Madison Rayne decides to take a microphone, calling on Maria to stop stalling, calling her a coward, suggesting that she's now trying to back out of this match. Eventually, Maria walks out from the back, clearly nervous but determined to stand up for herself. Falling slightly behind, Jay Lethal is still to this second trying to talk her out of the match, and once in the ring, he refuses to leave. He really wants to ensure that this is what Maria wants to do. She couldn't be more emphatic, but he's still not certain. Matt Morgan takes the microphone and suggests that Jay's being a little bit controlling, trying to stir the pot. Jay turns to Morgan, getting in his face, only to be pushed by the 7-footer. The push forces him into his girlfriend Maria. Jay Lethal and Maria both being knocked over. Even Matt Morgan realises he's gone too far. He certainly didn't intend to take Maria down as well. Jay Lethal quickly returns to his feet. He's furious and ready. He immediately wants to fight Matt Morgan, but Morgan's kind of looking at Maria, as is Madison Rayne, and as the initial red mist does dissipate, Lethal realises that he should probably be checking on his girlfriend. Rayne and Matt Morgan leave the ring, but say that they have a compromise. If Lethal wants Morgan and she wants Maria, then they should have a mixed tag team match at Final Resolution. That's then followed up by AJ Styles shown entering the office of Paul Heyman, and he speaks with the man in charge about the announcement of his match with Tyler Black at Final Resolution. He's happy to face him, but he also tells Paul Heyman that he wants him to guarantee two things. One, that there'll be no New Age BS that's going to overshadow the match between the two, and secondly, that there's no time limit. Paul Heyman says that AJ Styles has his word that he will do everything in his power to ensure that this match runs completely smoothly. He's determined to see AJ Styles and Tyler Black go one-on-one with a decisive victor, especially given the rematch is taking place on pay-per-view. AJ Styles is happy with this, leaves the office, and it's just there, the guarantee almost in a way to the fans that we're not going to have any outside involvement in this match. Well, you can't really guarantee that in terms of the characters, because who knows what Jimmy Jacobs might have up his sleeve. We are just trying to tell the fans there in plain terms that it's not going to be the same as last time where it was the time limit. We're not going to have any bullshit from the outside. It's just going to be these two incredible athletes who had a great match a couple of months ago having an even better match on pay-per-view. Prior to the main event, a video package chronicles the history of Jeff Jarrett in TNA, and it looks back to the inception of the company. He was very much the figurehead of the promotion for a very, very long time. He held the NWA World Heavyweight Championship on 6 occasions. He main evented so many events. He was the cornerstone. More recently, the TNA founder looked to take a more hands-off approach. He said himself that he was happy if he never had another match in TNA as long as the future looked bright for the promotion. However, at Bound for Glory, he'd reached his limit. He made his return, cutting short an anti-TNA rant from Mr. Anderson. At Turning Point, Mr. Anderson defeated Jeff in controversial circumstances, with tonight providing an opportunity to set the record straight in a no disqualifications match. And again, they don't seem to click, but this is a better match than what they had on pay-per-view. I think it was 68 on pay-per-view, so happy with it. 70, a no DQ match, and we want them to brawl all around the ringside area. Jeff Jarrett's matches often got criticised for being overbooked, but we almost want to go into that territory here. Mr. Anderson isn't backing down. He goes blow for blow with Jeff Jarrett, who is somebody who is known for having some of the stiffest punches in the business. So for Mr. Anderson to be able to go punch for punch with him certainly puts him on a level, and eventually Mr. Anderson picks up the victory with a mic check, standing over Jeff Jarrett. Decisive this time. There can be no excuses because it was no DQ. A lot of weapons brought into play, but Mr. Anderson, despite the brutal nature of the match, he's still not lost for words. He, of course, has something to say, and he takes a microphone saying that he is coming for the World Heavyweight title. When it comes to TNA, he is simply on another level. He throws a dismissive look towards Jeff Jarrett, who he stands over in the ring, the referee then helping Jarrett out of the ring as Kurt Angle comes out from the back. He takes a microphone himself and reiterates that he still isn't sure that Anderson deserved this shot. Anderson fires back, saying that he'd take Kurt more seriously if Angle deserved to be the champion himself. He says that Kurt isn't the best wrestler in the world, just the luckiest. Angle comes back, saying that he'd usually tell somebody like Anderson that they're an asshole, but he already does that himself. Instead, he'd like to show Mr. Anderson what he thinks of him. After all, it's been a while since he broke an ankle. Kurt Angle wants to see that happen. He pauses, hoping that the fans want to see that happen. Even Paul Heyman wants to see it happen. Mr. Anderson holds the distinctive honour of being the one guy that Kurt Angle and Paul Heyman seem to agree on. They both can't stand him. So at Final Resolution, even though he doesn't necessarily think that Mr. Anderson deserves this title shot, Kurt will put his title on the line against Anderson. But it's him who is the one with the opportunity. He smells blood. He is going for the kill. Mr. Anderson is all talk. We all know that. He's talked an incredible game. He's mentioned about how he was the last guy to beat Kurt Angle. But at the end of the day, Kurt can't wait to share the 6-sided ring with him and show exactly who the best wrestler in the world is, and there's going to be no doubt that we'll be able to deliver a great pay-per-view. When you're gaining that sort of heat to your storyline and getting this level of segment rating, there can be no argument that these guys deserve to main event pay-per-views. Very, very few people can get angles of that level in the company, and Mr. Anderson happens to be one of those guys. A 78 is a very good episode. It's probably about where we expect the shows to be now. Below 75 I'd be disappointed with. 75 to 80 is good, and anything above 80 is really, really good. A couple of people re-signing contracts with it being towards the end of the year, and I'll just briefly show Explosion. Points gained for all of the teams involved. Sean Spears and Tyson Dukes getting the win for Team Canada. Homicide defeating Roderick Strong for Team Puerto Rico. Again, might seem a bit odd considering that we built Roderick Strong up on that previous episode, but we see in the opening segment, Roderick Strong was attacked by the New Age pre-show, and we'll go into that on next week's show as well. Generation Me then gaining points for Team USA, and Kazuchika Okada firing Japan back to the top of the table. They're on 9 points, everybody else is on 6 points as the World X Cup continues. Next week is the final week of phase 2, and then 2 teams will qualify and they'll face off in the first 3-on-3 match in the final of the World X Cup. Which 2 teams will qualify, we'll find out next week. Like I said, a few contracts coming up, and I'm just going to complete all of those signings, as I will with James Storm and Nikki Rocks as they come up over the next couple of days. MVP is staying with WWE, although there is somebody in WWE who hasn't been offered a contract extension, who let's expect to see them in maybe a couple of months' time. Continuing the build to Final Resolution with what I think was a really good show. The New Age coming out of that strong as well. I think Claudio Castagnoli v Ricochet would probably have been the highlight on that show despite the ratings. I just think that they had a great match, and I definitely recommend, even if it's just the highlights package on YouTube, go and checking that out if you haven't seen it, because it's just so great, and at the time I think it would have gone over huge on Impact. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week for the go home show to Final Resolution 2010. The first year of the save coming towards a close, and we've got huge plans for the rest of the year and of course for 2011.